Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Behind the Smile. Today's guest is Jay Prothero. Jay is a breathwork and resilience coach who has lived through the challenges of anxiety, major depression, and PTSD. For many years, alcohol became a way to cope, not through dependence, but as a way to numb pain and avoid difficult emotions. Alongside his own struggles, Jay also walked with his son through the depths of ice addiction. These experiences have shaped him with resilience, compassion, and a deep understanding of what it means to heal. Now, Jay shares his story to remind us that no matter how heavy life feels, there is always a way forward. Now, Jay and I met almost 12 months ago now when we spent a weekend together in the snowy mountains doing our breathwork instructor training. And I'm so excited for you all to hear his story today. So, Jay, welcome to Behind the Smile. How are you today?
Yeah, really good. Thanks for having me, Ash. It's
How you
yeah, real honor.
feeling?
Yeah, real honor. It's yeah, thanks for reaching out, and yeah, I'm looking forward to being vulnerable and sharing my story.
I'm really excited because I obviously got to hear parts of your story when we spent that very transformational weekend together, along with about 20 others. But there's parts that we didn't cover just purely from the lack of time. And yeah, I just know that we're going to be able to get to some really powerful points throughout the conversation today. So thank you again for opening yourself up and agreeing to join me here on the show. We like to kick things off with some nice, easy questions. So let's start with Jay, where do you live? What does an average day look like? And what do you do for fun?
Okay, so currently I live in a little coastal town called Bateman's Bay. It's on the south coast of New South Wales, about 4 hours south of Sydney. So I moved here or back here in September 2023. Um, What do I do to fill my day? Yeah, I'm just at the moment just trying to fill in some gaps, trying to obviously work. So doing I've got my little Breathe with Jay breathwork sort of side hustle business where I instruct breathwork sessions every week on a Tuesday at the local yoga studio here, which is amazing. I've been given a really good opportunity there and met some amazing people. It's a really good little family there. What do I do for fun? At the moment, it's been like a lot of sort of getting this a new business started and trying to get ourselves out there and meetings and all the fun stuff. So yeah,
Tell
that's
me, tell me a little bit more about the business because we were kind of talking about it before we started recording, but I think it's really cool. What's the concept?
yeah. So the business is called Freeze Yourself. I've teamed up with a friend of mine, Trent Merrin, who's an ex NRL player, and yeah, we've got this business. Trent sort of founded it, so he's the founder. And I actually went to an event where he was, doing his magic, so to speak, and it really resonated me what he was trying to do. So yeah, I sort of just approached him and said, "Look, I'm really keen on, getting involved in this, whether it's as an investor or whether it's a worker, because it really sort of is my passion to go down this road and help
Mm,
people." So basically, we're an ice bath business, but we're an ice bath business with a bonus, and that is that we do what we call tactical resilience programs, and doing those at high schools, sporting clubs, really anyone that needs it. We've actually got one coming up at HMAS Albatross at the end of October. So yeah, it is just getting off the ground, and we've got a really good program. We're really proud of it, and yeah, just can't wait to roll it out.
okay, so for somebody who doesn't have any experience with ice baths, what is the link between an ice bath, sitting in an ice bath, and building mental resilience?
Okay, look, a lot of people struggle with cold. Okay, so
Me, I
yeah,
hate it.
so basically, like everyone, like ice bars have been around for thousands and thousands of years. Okay, Vikings have been doing it. Like all of these other cultures have been doing the ice baths. Um, so everyone looks at it in the Western world as a type of sports recovery, which it is amazing for that as well. I got into ice baths about 5 years ago on my search to find something that wasn't medication. And we'll get into that later with my story. But I found ice baths 5 years ago. I got in my first ice bath, and the what would you call it? Like the boost that it gives you, um, it's just next level. So putting yourself in that conscious, uncomfortable position and knowing that
Mm,
you can breathe your way through it. And then when you get out, it's this massive dopamine hit, which a lot of people are looking for in the wrong ways.
mm.
Um, it's a mood booster. It's just, yeah, the list is endless of the benefits.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so funny. I was just in Bali recently and I actually ended up doing 2 ice baths in the space of about 5 days, which is something I really don't enjoy them, and I have quite an intense physical reaction. And,
Yeah,
sometimes I get hard on myself because I think, "Well, Ash, you should know better. I've got all of the intellectual knowledge to know how to calm my breath, to bring myself back to my body, to do it well." And I have this, I put this unnecessary pressure on myself. So what I'm really working on at the moment is actually just getting curious with that and being kinder to myself. And it was actually pointed out to me through an instructor, a coach. He said, if you're already getting into the ice at quite peak sympathetic state, fight or flight, high stress, and then you
yeah.
immerse yourself in the ice, it's like your nervous system doesn't have anywhere else to go. And that's why I'm really gasping for air, and every fiber of my being is telling me to get out of the ice. And, of course, I like a challenge. And so I don't get out, but I wouldn't say that I watch other people get in and they just they lower themselves in and they
Yeah.
come to the breath and it's all very spiritual. Yeah, and I'm just like, I wish I could do that. But anyway, not my reality. Not yet, anyway. We'll see. Maybe my
I
journey.
suppose a lot of people are like that, and I was
Yeah.
too. Yeah. Like, I mean, I was drawn to it very quickly. I just loved that boost I got. I got out of my first ice bath, and I just went, "Wow, this is how I'm meant to feel." Like it was
Mm,
just next level for me personally. But yeah, I suppose it's like anything too. Like if it's a struggle at first, the more times you do it and you be consistent with those little steps, whether it's just
yes,
starting with a 30-second cold shower daily,
that's
that has benefits as well.
that's right. Yes, look, it's going to be a journey and one that I'm willing to stay open towards. But I do agree with you. The benefits afterwards, like you feel amazing. It's
In the
incredible.
last
That's
hours,
yeah,
that
exactly right.
dopamine just lasts for hours. Like,
Yeah, it really does. And I love what you said. It's like a healthy way to find that dopamine.
absolutely, absolutely.
So, Jay, I've asked you to bring in a photo today, and that is a photo from a time in your life where you were hiding behind a smile. So, you were presenting one version of yourself externally, but the truth was internally you felt very different. Could you please describe for our listeners the photo that is coming up on the screen now? If you're listening along and not watching this video, could you describe what does the photo look like? And then tell us what was going on for you at that time in your life.
Yeah. Actually, this photo was taken on a beach on the Gold Coast. It was about 9 o'clock at night. And at that point in time, I was hiding or masking like my feelings with alcohol. And it was sort of, I was getting so guilty with using alcohol as that mask that I would try and come up with ideas to not be at home by myself at night. So yeah, I went to the beach and it was a full moon, and I think you can see from memory you can see the moon. I tried to capture it. But yeah, that time of my life was a really big struggle for me. It was when I had my second breakdown with work with my policing career. So yeah, it was a time when I felt like I had nobody around, but I did have good people in my corner, but I chose to not see that so much. If you can see
Mm.
what I mean. Yeah. So go
Yeah,
on.
I completely understand what you mean. It's so hard. I've just been thinking about this a lot lately, actually. when we as humans move through seasons where we might be feeling not ourselves, or like for me recently, I had a real wave of depression roll through and I've come out the other side of it now. And I keep thinking to myself, how could I have navigated that any differently? And what did I
Yeah.
really need in that time? And it's so funny, isn't it? Because people say to you, reach out anytime.
Yeah.
But when you're in the thick of it, the last thing I wanna do is, like, telling me to pick up the phone and call you is like asking me to fly. Like, it's incomprehensible in that moment, and I can't explain that. That's what, living with mental health looks like sometimes, and yet people always say, "Reach out anytime," and it's like, but I can't. I actually can't. So, I really understand what you mean in that you were surrounded by support, but you couldn't reach out for it.
Well, and on top of that, like, although you know you have the support, you don't want to be that person. Or for me, I didn't want to be that person. I didn't want to be a burden. I didn't want to
Mm,
be, didn't want to be that person where, or in, in my mind, I was thinking, geez, if I keep talking about this, people are just rolling their eyes at me going, again, can't you just get over it? And that's not what they were saying at all. But the little voice, your little monkey mind there, that's
yeah.
what it's showing you, that you don't want to be that burden on you, on the people that you love, and they love you. So you just didn't want to do that. Like I come up with plans in my head of just so I could have people in my proximity. Like for instance, at one point in my breakdown, I didn't feel safe to go outside. I was very hyper vigilant. So I would call my daughter up and say, "Oh, do you want to come around?" And then when she was there, I'd say, "Oh, while you're here, do you want to go to shops?" And that was clearly just to go and get some groceries because I didn't want to do that by myself. And
Wow.
I would walk along the side, like the shop fronts, and then I'd get my daughter to be on the other side so that I knew I was sort of covered, if you know what I mean. And so yeah, and it was just in my mind, I'm tricking all these people to come and hang out with me, but there was
Mm.
to it. It was because I needed to do stuff. Um,
And during this time, were you still with the police?
yeah, I was with the police, so I was medically retired last year.
Okay. And was there also a fear in reaching out because of the impact that might have had on your career and the stigma around that?
At that time in my life, I really hated the organisation. I was being a victim instead of taking some ownership. So yeah, like I didn't want them to reach out because I would rather say they're not reaching out to me. Look at
Mm,
them. And to a point, that's true with police organisations. Like it is when you're good, you're good. And when you're not so good mentally, you sort of feel very much like you're alone.
yeah.
There is people within those organisations that are amazing people, but from my experience, they were very few and far between.
And it ties in as well back to when you have poor mental health. I often think of it like when I've gone through periods of having poor mental health, whether that's been depression or anxiety, you do fall into those victim mentalities. You do feel
Mm.
like the world is against you, and so and that your brain tells you that that's true, and then you search for evidence to support the fact, and it's this vicious cycle.
And then you
Yeah,
wonder why
wow.
things don't work out. Like, relationships break
Correct.
down. Like all of these things are just snowballing. But it's not
Exactly.
until you look within and take some actual responsibility for why things are happening to you. I mean, with work, with my police career, you know, it is a very hard career, and I still have so much gratitude for the coppers that are still out there doing the job because it's a hard job. There's shift work involved. You know, you're always dealing with people at their worst, and they could be
Mm,
upstanding members of the community, but you're just seeing them at their worst, whether they've been broken into or, they've had a family disagreement or whatever, a traffic accident, total accident, but you're getting them at their worst time. So there's a lot of
Mm.
negativity in your life as a police officer. So yeah, there's a lot of masking comes with that as well.
Yeah, of course. I want to chat about the the masking and the self-medicating a little more later, but before we do, Jay, tell me about what you were like as a child. Like, when was the point where you thought, when I grow up, I want to be a policeman?
Um, I have to say that my at my want or need to join the police was very early on. I could say like 12 years old.
Mm.
Um, I've sort of, now that I've done some, work on myself, I sort of know why.
Could you
Uh,
tell us? Would you feel comfortable sharing that?
Absolutely, it's because I feel like from a very young age, I've always tried to be the helper. Yeah, tried to, which, in turn works against you because you become the people pleaser and it's all about pleasing everybody else rather than yourself. So yeah, I just used to look at police and go, wow, what an amazing job that would be. And, being at that young age, you don't take the other things into consideration that
Of
you
course not.
see, thousands of really bad incidents, like, yeah, horrific incidents that humans should not see once, let alone 1,000 times.
Mm.
So, but yeah, I suppose it was, for me as a kid, it was just like, I was always into rugby league and there was a few players back in the 80s and 90s that were before football went professional that were police, and I sort of looked up to them, and yeah, so it was somewhat something that was always in the back of my mind, but then
Mm.
I didn't join until I was 28.
Yeah, right. And how long did it take before the veil lifted? Like, you were a police officer for 20 years. So, was it within the first couple of years that you started to think, oh, this isn't quite what it cracked up to be? Like, how did that shape up?
No, so for me, I love my job. I believe I was good at my job. Um, it wasn't until I had an injury, um, that which was 2019 or 2020. So I was a long way into my career then. So I would say it was like the last 4 years of my career where I was going, this isn't healthy, for me. Um,
Mm.
yeah, so that was after my first physical injury, was my first real bout of depression.
What was the physical injury? How did that occur?
So it was during an arrest, and I didn't feel it at first. It wasn't until the adrenaline wore down, but I actually ruptured it's called the scaphoid lunate ligament, in your wrist. So that ruptured off the bone. So I had to have, like, it was two surgeries to fix that. And I still don't have full movement in my wrist, and I never will. So it was that, but it was linked with being on light duties
Mm.
recovery, because it was a 10 to 11-month recovery before I got back out onto the street. So it was my first real initiation to not feeling part of a team. Because as I said, like as a kid, I was always played team sport. So I was always part of a team. And then while I was on light duties, I was sort of stuck in an office. Um, and yeah, just didn't feel part of anything.
And
That's
help
when,
me understand, when you were on light duties, were you still at your station, or were you more of like in the head office space?
yes. So my first injury, my first lot of was at my station. So even though I had my normal people all around me, I still just did not feel like I was part of it. And that was
Mm.
hard for me because I was at that point like a sort of senior member of that station, not in rank, but in experience.
Mm.
So it was it was quite hard during them times.
Yeah, it's almost like you've been part of this family for all of this time, and then all of a sudden, I can imagine it's almost the camaraderie, for the people who are frontline general duties officers who are doing the day in, day out in the public. There would be a camaraderie that when you're no longer in that, you
Yes,
then don't feel part of. And it would be like,
absolutely.
yeah, like losing your family.
And that, and that, like I said, that was the first time I sort of really felt down, and I couldn't like even my boss at the time, he was saying, "You're doing a great job in there, though. Like without you in there, like all the others have got to do all these files and blah blah blah." And I'm like, in my head, I'm going, "Big deal. It's not
Mm.
what I want to be doing." And because it was such a long recovery, as I said, it was 10 or 11 months. And then in my head, I was just going, "It's okay. This isn't forever. As soon as I get back out on the street, all my problems will go." And to a point it did. As soon as I got back out on the street, it was like, yeah, back where I need or back. Um, and then, yeah, 6 months later, I got another injury. And then
Oh
that
my.
was and then
So what happened with the second injury? Where were you?
again, it was just a run of the mill arrest. I wasn't even an arrest. It was a mentally ill person that had been off his bipolar medication. And yeah, we tried to talk to him for like so long, to the point where we just had to get him back to the hospital for his own safety. And yeah, we had to go hands on. And unfortunately, my partner at the time, his hand, he lost grip, and I had one handcuff on the guy, and my finger got crushed in the handcuff. So I could I actually felt it crunch. And yeah, so then that was another surgery. And I remember getting in the car again. It wasn't hurting because the adrenaline was up, but I remember sitting in the car, and I just, like, I swore, and I went, because my mind just went straight back to, I'm going to be on light duties now. I'm not going to cope. And about 2 days after surgery is when the real breakdown happened, where
Mm.
that's when the hypervigilance come in. I started drinking through the week, which I was never a midweek drinker, just to take that little edge off. But then I'd just keep drinking. And then I went into a lot of, what would you call it, like destructive behavior.
What did that look like?
Uh, just not caring about myself. I was going I was going out all the time. Like, I was living on the Gold Coast then, so I was going out all the time and just, like, basically writing myself off and, making bad decisions. And I remember, like, a lot of, like, because I had that not care mentality what happens to me, like, I was drink driving.
Wow.
And yeah, and just, like, not caring. I remember thinking, "I hope I get caught, because then I'll get the sack," but I
Mm.
never got caught. So, um,
And so, how did it move from you being back on light duties, you're self medicating this depression with alcohol, acting out, to being medically put on leave? Or, I mean, was that, is that even the correct way to describe what happened next?
so basically, the way my mental health deteriorated very quickly after that second surgery, um, I refused to go back to work. Or not refuse, but, like, straight away I had psychologists and psychiatrists, um, and trying to work through things, but it just wasn't working. So I just kept getting medical certificates to say that I couldn't return to duty. Um, and that lasted, it would have been close to 10 months before I went back onto light duties. And that's when I went outside of my station. But the service itself, well, not the service as a whole, but I just felt like I didn't want to go back out on the street then, because I was hyper vigilant and I knew I wouldn't cope. So I was very aware that I couldn't go back out on the road and do my own job. So I was trying to find other avenues so I could stay in the police. But so I tried, I went to the training cell on the Gold
Mm.
Coast, which I really, really enjoyed. Like I love presenting, I love facilitating, and I really enjoyed helping the well, not, or the new police.
The recruits.
Yeah, well, they were out of the academy, but
Ah,
they
okay.
are in what Queensland call their first year constable program. So it was just helping them through, and I really enjoyed that role, but it was never going to be permanent. And so
Mm,
that was that was again where the dip happened because I had no permanency. The
mm,
service would not give me any permanency, so that I didn't have in the back of my mind at any time they're going to chuck me back out on the street where I don't want to be, because I
yeah.
didn't trust myself. I
Mm,
honestly didn't trust myself with people.
yeah. It's that uncertainty, isn't it? I've got a number of family members who are police officers, and one of the things that I've discussed with them a lot is the uncertainty of the job in so many respects, from
Yes,
starting out to not knowing what station you're going to be placed at,
yes,
to being moved around all the time, to doing all different, whether you're on the watch house, whether you're on the van, whether you're like, it's all, there's so much constant uncertainty, and that can be very destabilizing.
well,
How
you
did
don't know
how did
what happens day to day, job to job.
Yeah,
Like, how
exactly
is
right.
going to happen?
And it blows my mind that you were relatively, I suppose, unaffected by everything that you had seen for, over a decade. Like, you weren't injured until the last 4 years. And, on the daily, you're seeing dead bodies, you've got people
Yeah,
abusing you, people throwing feces at you. Like, I've heard and seen so much, and it's horrible.
yeah.
What do you think it was about that time? How were you able to handle that and not be super affected at the time?
I believe for me was, although I had really good colleagues in the police, my real friends were outside the job.
Mm,
Always maintained those relationships. Of course, like when you're in the police and you're doing shift work and everything, you do hang around other police because they're the ones that are off when you're off work, like,
mm,
because, most people are a Monday to Friday, maybe a Saturday or something like that. So yeah, you do socialize with other officers, but I always made sure that I had my outside friends, and thankfully, like I've got a handful of friends that I've had since I was, 6 years old,
wow.
still in contact with now. So yeah, so I was very lucky that I had that. But then there was a big transition as well when you first get into the police. Those friends, it's like they've got a new toy, and then like you'll be just socializing, and next minute you'd get two of them just come and wrestle you because they think you're this. I don't know what they think, that you get trained in the academy, but it's like they think you can just beat anybody. And next minute you got two people and you go, oh, well, what am I meant to do?
What the hell? I don't have any of my weapons or anything with me right now to protect myself.
I like it, yeah. So I was very, very fortunate, and still very am very grateful to my friends who I'm still in contact with, and I still know
Mm,
they have my back 100%. And they're the ones that with all the work that I've done in this last few years with the breath work, and I've done meditation courses, I've done all of the stuff. Um, they're the ones that, that's when you got true friends, because they're the ones that keep in contact, and they tell you, oh, you're doing a great job, like, so yeah, it's really good.
yeah, exactly right. They're not just your drinking buddies. Like, they're happy to just support you in all seasons.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm very fortunate that way.
And so tell me, at what point did you realize I need help here? I need to stop self-medicating with alcohol. I need to search for other avenues. Like what led you to the breath work, the meditation, all of these different healing modalities?
I think the big clanger for me was being put on medication. I had a massive stigma around that, being a copper, and unfortunately, a lot of people that you come into contact with in that job are all, they're on medication, a lot of them, and I felt really ashamed about that, which I shouldn't. Like now, but at the time, I was like, I'm no better than them. Like so that was the big reason. And plus I was abusing alcohol at the time as well. So I was on this medication and then abusing alcohol as well. And, you know, it's a bad mix. It's a bad,
It doesn't work, does it? I've been there as well.
it doesn't. So yeah, once, like I'll say I'm still very anti-medication, but I don't judge anyone for being on medication. It's just that's a me thing. But I will say that it did level me. It brought me to this place where I could start thinking a little bit clearly. That's when I went, okay, I've got to work out where to find something that takes this away from me, so I don't have to
Mm.
be on medication. And yeah, ironically, the first thing I did was an ice bath retreat, like a ice bath weekend. It was a Wim Hof weekend, not with the man himself, but one of his people. So
And so
that was,
then you would have gotten the exposure to both the breath work and the ice
yeah.
therapy in the one weekend.
And again, ironically, I didn't really like the breath work,
Really?
only because I felt like I, and like our teacher talks about this as well. It's like the Wim Hof method of breathing, it gets you into that sympathetic nervous system. So you're up there, but I don't feel like it brings you down.
Mm.
Sort of do the rounds, the 3 or 4 rounds of deep, heavy breathing, and then, okay, see you later.
Good luck with that. And then you walk
Yeah,
away fried.
and so that's like, to this day, I try to always, like again, I use this from our teacher is, I try and sandwich my breathwork sessions. It's like
Mm.
start gently, go your heavy breathing or whatever you're doing, but always come back really slowly and do that integration. The integration's so important.
So important, isn't it? And that's often the best part, like where you just kind of feel like you're floating.
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
love that.
yeah. Everyone never wants to leave.
Yeah, I know, right? It's the best. Yeah, I just think it's the best part. I'm so mindful, even when I'm curating a playlist to run a breath flow, to really create that spaciousness at the end for people just to go wherever
Yeah,
they need to go, you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
And so, how did you go from this weekend of Wim Hof ice, breathing in ice, to going, I'm going to go do my instructor training?
So there was, once I did that ice bath retreat, I then went in the direction of meditation. So I went and done a Vedic meditation course on the Gold Coast. So that was just a nighttime, I think, for 3 nights, a few hours a night. And it was just to
Hmm.
teach the Vedic method. So then I just did those 2 things for so long, just those, like, even when I couldn't get to an ice bath, I'd do the cold shower every day. And then I was meditating 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes at night. And it was all done during this time where I was off work. So I had all this time. But that then led me to do things like, I went on a month road trip by myself and had no plan. So that sort of, yeah, I mean, that mindfulness space just leads you in all different directions, and really listening to yourself, learning to listen to yourself was a big thing for me as well. But yeah, always had that Mr. Nice Guy mentality, like people pleasing, doing all that, because that was a thing from my childhood as well. I always felt like I was chasing love. So then that then goes into your
Mm,
adult relationships where, oh, I've got to do this so that they love me. So there was always conditions, I suppose. Yeah.
mm, mm, mm. Of course. And do you feel like learning how to sit with yourself through Vedic meditation, learning how to move energy through breath work, has that allowed the people pleasing and the the drive for external validation to fall away? Not necessarily disappear completely, because I don't know that that's even possible. But
Yes.
does it have less of a hold on you these days?
I think those modalities led me on the path to discover that I didn't have to do those things. Like they're still there and I still do them to this day sometimes. But I catch myself and I
Mm,
go, "Oh, hang on, I actually
yeah.
don't want to be doing this," I'm or I've got to set a boundary on this, or on this
Mm.
person, got to set a boundary. Um, so yeah, I think it more just led me down the path to discover that I didn't have to be the people pleaser. I didn't have to, um, be the nice guy all the time.
Yeah, I find that it allows you to create awareness. And
Awareness.
once you have the awareness, then you have the ability to make changes.
And really for me as well, a lot of self-worth has come in since I've been practicing these modalities because I didn't have a lot.
Mm,
I've now discovered I didn't have a lot of self-worth, and that's why I would let people's behaviors happen and not just accept it because of the fear of,
mm,
yeah, it was a fear, I suppose. I would rather have that behavior or that toxic person in my life than have nobody. So I was afraid to be
yeah.
by myself, and that's one thing that has really changed in me is that I know now that I'm okay if I'm by myself, and that's
Mm,
probably a really big thing that's happened in this last few years is that I would rather be by myself than have toxic people in my life. So yeah, that
amen to
was
that. I feel like I'm on a
yes,
similar journey.
that was the big one.
Hated being, yeah, I used to hate being in my own company. I would always want to be around other people, particularly back when I was drinking. I found it so hard to sit with myself. And now these days, I've almost gone too
Yeah,
far the other direction. I love being in my own company so much that I have to force myself sometimes to get out there and
yeah,
socialize. But, I guess it's that journey into balance, isn't it?
yeah, absolutely. It is, and that's the thing too. You got to find the balance.
Without a doubt. Hey, Jay, I want to chat a moment about another big part of your story that we haven't really touched on yet. And that is the experience, the journey that you've had as a parent who has a child that is addicted. And, you've shared openly that your son is in recovery, which is incredible that he's in recovery from ice addiction. Can you share with us, when did you first realize that your son was in trouble and what did you do?
That's a really good question, Ash, because I sort of knew I sort of knew that he wasn't leading a healthy lifestyle for a long time, but he was always that, especially from like teenager, like he was always, I'm just going to do it my way. So even when he turned 18, like that's when I first found out that he was smoking marijuana. And I basically, looking back now, I reacted very poorly to that. Like I kicked him out of my house. And I sort of went, how dare you? You're bringing this stuff into
Mm,
my house. I'm a copper. Everything you have is because of my job. And, it was a very poor way of dealing with it. But then from that 18, then he went into the party, nightclub scene. And again, I didn't really know that he went into the ecstasy, like the MDMA scene. But always, like he's told me now that he's always just smoked cannabis all since he was 16, probably earlier. Um, but it wasn't until 2023 that he rang me up one day and said that he had tried ice and that he was disgusted in himself and that he felt like he let everyone down. And at that point, I was probably I'd just formed the intention to move back to Bateman's Bay. Um, so it was like, and I asked him straight out. I said, "Have you got a problem? Like, are you addicted?" And he went, "No, no, no." And I said, "Well, okay, you've made a mistake. It can be fixed." Naively, just don't do it
Mm.
anymore. Because coming from the police background, I've only dealt with drugs in a you're doing the wrong thing, I'm going to charge you, put you through the court system, and then wipe my hands. Which now I look at and I go, it's not really solving anything.
No.
But then it was, so that was around August 2023, July, August time that he told me. And then I moved down here. And then Christmas that year, he rang me Christmas Day, not knowing even what day it was. I thought he was ringing me to say Happy Christmas because it was early in
Mm.
the morning. And he was just in tears and he told me he had a problem, so that he was addicted to it. And I was actually traveling back up to the Gold Coast the day after Boxing Day. Yeah. Yeah. So I went to the Gold Coast, had a family meeting with my son, my daughter, and the kid's mum. And we asked him, what does he want to do? And he said, I don't want to live like this. I want to go to rehab. So I sort of went into massive, or both of us, both me and his mum went into massive sort of need to fix this now. And I paid an exorbitant amount of money to put him in a private rehab facility, which
Mm.
looking back was never going to work with ice. It was um, a 4 week rehab, um, which you never get off ice in 4 weeks. Takes you longer than that to actually get it out of your system. Uh, so yeah, that was just shy of $20,000.
Oh my goodness.
And then they sort of said he'll probably need extra weeks, which was going to be like, I think from memory was like 6 grand a week. Anyway, he didn't finish. There was a couple, I'm not going to bag the facility, but they were allowed to have their phones, so he was just in constant contact with the wrong people. And so it just didn't work and he didn't finish. He wasn't ready.
Mm.
So yeah, then it wasn't until this January when, because my son's a type 1 diabetic as well, and so he ended up in hospital. Basically, all his major organs were shutting down, so he was dying. So yeah, we I shot up to go up to Queensland again, and yeah, we it was he had hit his rock bottom then, which was really hard to see because he was a very different person.
Mm.
He was fully in addiction and very ill as well, but had this stinking dirty attitude. It was just terrible.
Mm.
Then while we were with him having lunch, he went to the toilet and took all his prescription medication, which just made him like a zombie.
Mm.
So yeah, then we decided as a family that he would move down here with me, which was quite big. At this stage, when he moved down to Bateman's Bay, he was only like 4 or 5 weeks clean, so he still had a stinking attitude. And
Yeah.
I just was, walking on eggshells. I was still working, and so he would come to work with me. I was in a very fortunate position where he could come to work, but then he would get bored, and but all that time, I will give it to him, he was contacting rehab centres to try and get into a public rehab, and thankfully, yeah, he got in, and he completed 4 months in rehab, and then he come back home, and yeah, then I sent him on a well, not I sent him, a contact of mine, a good friend of mine, offered him a job up north. And so he went up north and and thankfully, my mate was a recovering addict as well on the
Mm.
same drug. So it was, a beautiful, beautiful opportunity for my son to be with somebody that knew what the situation was and knew what addiction was all about. And yeah, and so now he's coming back soon, and he's dreaming of his goal is to start a business. So he's now just shy of 8 months sober, clean and sober.
Wow, Jay, that's so incredible to hear. And how beautiful that, your friend had that lived experience, was also an addict in recovery, because it's like,
Yeah,
that's how 12 step works. It's one addict
like,
sharing with another, one alcoholic sharing with another. It's like, God, higher power, universe, whatever you call it, has put him exactly where he needs to be for this part of his journey. That's
absolutely.
amazing. I'm so
Even
happy to
even
hear that.
my mate, like I only met my mate at the beginning of this year.
Mm.
Work that we both do.
That's incredible. What advice do you have for, any parent that's listening here today who's got a child still in active addiction? Because it's the most excruciating
Absolutely.
experience.
I don't even feel qualified to answer that question because I still don't know the answer, because as a parent, you are so helpless.
Mm,
The love hasn't changed. That unconditional love that you have for your child does not change, but they're not your child. They're a different
mm,
person. Um, he was living on the street in Brisbane, so he was homeless. Uh, and so that on top of his type 1 diabetes, so he's insulin dependent, and you know that he's not looking after himself because he'd rather spend his time and energy on getting his next hit rather than looking after his blood sugar levels.
mm.
So it's a really hard situation, but I will say that my son's journey, it has really been able to change my viewpoint on addiction and homeless people, because I've come from a 20-year career where you go and have a look at that junkie scum of the earth, you know, and now I look at them and I look at these people and I'm more curious. I look at them with curiosity rather than judgment, and I'm just wondering what their story is. You just want to say to them, you don't have to do this, like, but
Mm.
they've got to come up with that themselves, don't they? So,
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a powerful reminder that there's a person behind the addiction. There's a person behind the
mm,
illness. Nobody wakes up one day thinking, I know what I want to be when I grow up,
yeah,
somebody homeless who's addicted to a substance whose whole existence is just trying to find their next fix. Like, nobody chooses to get there. It's a series of instances. And, sometimes that does include poor decisions. I'm not saying that, people are blameless, but it's also, to have compassion and understanding and to see the person behind it is so important. I think it's a really important reminder for all of us. So thank you for sharing that, Jay. And thank you for sharing your experience with having a son who was so unwell and is now in recovery, because I think that gives a little hope to anybody out there who's going through a similar experience.
and like as I said, he's 8 months, so it's very early on in his
Mm,
recovery, but it to a point now where we're starting to see our boy again.
mm,
His humour's back. He's the funniest kid. When I say his kid, he's just turned 27. Um,
mm.
and like his humour's back, his personality's back. He jumped out of a plane the other day.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, he was gifted that by the mate he went and worked with. That was his birthday present, and yeah, so he's just in this last sort of 6 months of his recovery. He's on a really big upward trajectory, and I couldn't be prouder of him.
That's amazing. So incredible. Hey, Jay, I've loved chatting to you today. There's one final question, though, that I would love to ask you. And it's really to help us understand how you live your life today, stepping out from behind the smile. So I'd love to know, what are your three non negotiables that allow you to live your life today happy, authentic, and free?
Yeah, that's a routine. I think is a big
Mm,
one, and it's usually the first thing that leaves when you feel depressed or You feel anxious.
100%.
It's the worst.
Jay, I couldn't agree with you more. Like I said, I've just gone through a bit of a dip in my own mental health. And look, it only lasted maybe 5 days, but it was off the back of having lost a consistent routine over a period of time. I'd done a lot of travel this year and I wasn't embedded in my practices. And then, sure enough, I brought that back in. I made a commitment to myself. I said, I'm going to get up no matter what time, I'm going to get up an hour earlier than what I need to so that I can really commit to this. And I've
Yeah,
been back in it for a couple of weeks now and I just feels so much better. So I couldn't agree more.
yeah, routine's so important. Another thing for me, a non-negotiable, is learning. You never
Mm,
stop. Currently really focused on becoming a better man for myself, for my partner, and for the people that, are close to me. So yeah, just really, I'm really focused on, yeah, being that in a really healthy masculine energy, which I'm really enjoying, to be honest.
mm,
It's a really, it's a, because, men are losing that, and I think it's because we haven't been taught, because society has changed, and there's a lot of single mums bringing up boys. There's their father's away working in mines doing FIFO, or things like that, or they're just always at work. So yeah, I'm really focused on, learning about the healthy masculine energy, to be that grounded man that can support fully. Um,
mm.
my partner, my queen. So yeah, that's really important to me.
I love that.
The third one for me is trying to remain true to yourself.
Mm,
And that comes with having to set the boundaries, like I said earlier, setting boundaries on events, people. It's really important to just be true to yourself and learn to say no. If you're not,
mm.
if you don't want to do something, well, don't do it. And on the flip side of that too, if you really want to do something, like, make that happen. Communicate with, whether it be with your partner, with your children, with your loved ones, with your friends. If you want to go and do that, like, communicate it in a healthy way, and yeah, go and do that. Be true to yourself.
I love that. That's so important. What a perfect place to end the conversation today. I agree. When we honor and respect and love ourselves, then we show up as the best version of ourselves and everybody else around us benefits as well. So thank you. Thank you for sharing
Yeah.
those, Jay. And thank you so much for your time here today. If people want to check you out, find out more about your business, where can they go?
Yeah, so our main source is like Instagram. Look up Freeze Yourself. You'll see everything about us. Also on the website, so freezeyourself.com.
Amazing. I'll make sure I pop that information in the episode show notes. We say here on Behind the Smile that when we recover loudly, no one needs suffer in silence. So I just want to say thank you so much for joining me here today from the bottom of my heart. I appreciate you. Thanks, Jay.
Thank you so much, Ash. Like, thanks for inviting me on your show. I've listened to a few. One that I did listen to that was amazing was the one you did with your dad,
Yeah.
and spoke about both your struggles with addiction. Yeah, and that was a really, really good podcast. So, and
Thanks, Jay.
congratulations on your recent wedding, and also
Thank you.
on your, what was it, 4,000 and something days.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, 2,000. We're not quite
yeah,
4,000, but
yeah,
we'll get there. I love
still,
that.
and so
Thank you,
congratulations,
Jay.
because I know, um, I don't suffer addiction, but um, I know for my son, I know how hard it is, and yeah, all the love to you.
Yeah, thank you. That's right. Every single day counts. So I really appreciate you for acknowledging me in that as well. All right, legend. I'll speak to you soon. Take care.
See ya.